Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating ancient story. It asks a question that, honestly, we all still grapple with. What does it truly mean to be clean? To be purified, to get a fresh start. And let me tell you, the answer might not be what you think.
I mean, really think about it for a second. When you feel like you need a fresh start, maybe after you've messed something up or, it's the new year, what's your go-to move? Do you deep clean your apartment? Take a really long shower? Is that feeling of purity something you do on the outside, or is it something that has to happen on the inside?
Well, believe it or not, about 2,500 years ago, this exact question was at the center of a meeting between two very different people. The story comes from a classic Buddhist text, the Sutra on the Brahmin who believed in purification by water. And it tells a story that really challenges this whole idea of how we can just wash away our mistakes.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off by the bank of a river. The Buddha, not long after his enlightenment, is just sitting there meditating. It's a very quiet, very profound moment. And then, someone approaches him. This man is a Brahmin, a member of the priestly class in ancient India, and he has this deeply held belief that bathing in this sacred river can literally wash away your bad karma, all your spiritual gunk. So he sees the Buddha sitting there and basically says, "Hey, you should come take a dip, get purified."
And right here, this is the heart of their disagreement. For the Brahmin, purity is totally external. It's a ritual you do with water to wipe your spiritual slate clean. But the Buddha, he offers this radically different idea, that real purity has absolutely nothing to do with water. It has everything to do with the state of your own mind.
Now, the Buddha doesn't just shoot him down and say, "Nope, you're wrong." Instead, he offers a kind of diagnosis. He explains that the real source of impurity, the real dirt, isn't something on our skin that we can just wash off. He says it's a series of mental tangles. He calls them knots.
And he's super specific about it. He doesn't just say a bunch of knots. He says there are exactly 21 of these knots, these mental afflictions that tie up the mind, stain it, and stop it from being truly clear and pure.
And these knots, they cover the whole spectrum of the human mind. You've got the obvious ones, right? Like greed and anger. But then there are the more subtle ones, like that nagging doubt or jealousy, or even just a general lack of awareness. The text calls it heedlessness. This, the Buddhist says, is the real dirt that stains us from the inside.
And the stakes here are pretty high. The text is very clear. If a person has these 21 knots tied to their mind, they will fall into a woeful state. So we're not just talking about being a little messy mentally. We're talking about a mind that is actively leading itself into suffering.
Now, to make his point totally unforgettable, the Buddha doesn't just get into some dense philosophical argument. Instead, he uses a simple, absolutely brilliant analogy that the Brahmin, and, well, all of us, can get immediately. It's the analogy of two cloths. He says, imagine two pieces of fabric. First, you've got this filthy, greasy garment from a child. It is just deeply stained, through and through. That represents a mind all tangled up in those 21 knots. Then you've got a beautiful, fine cloth from the city of Benares, which is inherently pure and clean. This represents a mind that's free from all those knots.
Okay, so you take both of these cloths to the cleaner, and the cleaner uses the strongest stuff they've got. We're talking lye, ash, even cow dung, which were actually common cleaning agents back then. This whole harsh, external washing process, that represents the Brahmin's water rituals. So what happens? Well, the filthy child's garment, even after all that scrubbing, it's still dark and greasy. Why? Because the stains are ground into the very fibers of the cloth. You can't wash them out from the outside. But the fine Benares cloth? It comes out perfectly pure and white. The washing didn't add purity to it. It just revealed the purity that was already there all along. So, if dunking yourself in a river doesn't work, what does? The Buddha then lays out his alternative. This is the real method for getting that fresh start. And it's basically a three-part process. First, you start with your actions. Simple, ethical conduct. Don't kill, don't steal, don't lie. This basically stops you from adding new stains to the cloth. Second, you do the real internal work of recognizing and then abandoning those 21 mental knots. This is the act of patiently untying each tangle. And third, you don't just get rid of the negative, you actively cultivate the positive, like compassion and loving kindness for everyone. The Buddhist question to the Brahmin is just so direct and powerful. A person who does evil deeds, what can this water do to purify them?
The point is, true cleansing isn't passive. It's an active, internal process of living an ethical life and training your own mind.
So how does the Brahmin react to this? I mean, this is a complete reframing of his entire worldview. This is really the climax of the whole story.
He just listens. He hears the analogy of the two cloths, and you can just imagine the light bulb going off. Everything clicks. He doesn't argue. He doesn't get defensive. He has this genuine moment of awakening right there on the riverbank.
He basically says, wow, you've got it, I'm in. He completely shifts his allegiance from these external rituals to this new path of inner work. It's a total 180-degree transformation.
And this isn't just some fleeting feeling. He makes a real commitment, a vow, to follow this path of inner purification for the rest of his days. He finally understands that the fresh start he was looking for wasn't in the river. It was inside himself the whole time.
And really, that brings the whole question right back to us, doesn't it? This ancient story is like a mirror, asking us to look at our own lives. When we want to feel renewed, are we just scrubbing the surface? Or are we willing to do that deeper, sometimes more difficult work of untying the knots inside our own minds? The river's always there, sure, but the real work and the real freedom is found within.